Jai Hind everyone. Welcome to my YouTube channel, which is Explore Yourself, Banking, and General Knowledge, etc. Today I am going to describe my short story, Why Values Matter More Than Success. In the busy city of Riverton, where tall buildings touch the clouds and people measure their lives by salaries, promotions, cars, and houses, lived a young man named Arjun Mehta. He was intelligent, ambitious, and determined to become successful before he turned 35. From childhood, he had heard people say that success was the ultimate destination of life. His father, a modest school teacher, often reminded him that education was important, but Arjun had interpreted those words differently. To him, education was valuable because it could lead to a powerful position, a large income, and social recognition. He studied relentlessly, won scholarship, graduated at the top of his class, and eventually joined a prestigious technology company. Within a few years, he had everything people admired from a distance: a luxurious apartment, an expensive car, designer clothes, and a position that made strangers assume he had figured out life. Arjun's rise inside the company was remarkably quick. He arrived earlier than almost everyone else and left later than most of his colleagues. He accepted difficult projects, volunteered for assignments that others avoided, and made sure senior executives knew his name. Whenever an opportunity appeared, he was ready to compete for it, even if it meant working against someone who had once been his friend. His colleagues admired his efficiency but rarely trusted him completely. Arjun did not notice the differences between his attentions was fixed on the next achievement. When his manager praised him, he felt powerful. When someone else received recognition, he felt threatened. Slowly, success stopped being something he enjoyed and became something he desperately needed to prove that he was better than everyone around him. One evening, Arjun received an important assignment that could determine whether he would become the company's youngest regional director. His team had developed software for a major client, and the final report was due within a week. During the last testing phase, one of the junior analysts, Rohan, discovered a serious problem in the system. If the software was launched without correction, confidential customer information could potentially be exposed. Rohan immediately informed Arjun and suggested postponing the launch. Arjun stared at the airport in silence. The client presentation was scheduled for the next morning, and delaying it would almost certainly damage his chances of promotion. After a moment, he closed the file and told Rohan that the issue could be handled after the presentation. Rohan looked uncomfortable, but Arjun calmly said, "Sometimes you have to understand what is important and what is merely a technical complication." The following morning, the presentation went exceptionally well. The client praised the team, senior executive congratulated Arjun, and his manager announced that he was being considered for the regional director's position. Arjun returned home that evening feeling victorious. He poured himself a drink, stood beside the large window of his apartment, and looked at the city lights below. For the first time, however, the achievement felt strangely empty. He had expected happiness to arrive like a celebration inside his heart. But instead there was only a quiet uneasiness. His phone continued to fill with congratulatory messages. Yet he found himself thinking about Rohan's worried expression. He dismissed the thought, telling himself that successful people sometimes have to make difficult decisions. He did not realize that the decision he had just made was beginning to change the kind of person he was becoming. 2 days later, everything changed. The software malfunctioned, and the security vulnerability allowed unauthorized access to a limited portion of the client's information. Although the company quickly contained the problem, the client demanded an investigation. Senior management examined the development reports and discovered that the Rohan had reported the vulnerability before the launch. They also discovered that Arjun had received the warning and had deliberately chosen not to postpone the presentation. Suddenly, the promotion that had seemed almost certain disappeared from its future. The company's board suspended him from leading major projects while the investigations continued. His colleagues avoided him, not because they enjoyed seeing him fail, but because they had lost confidence in his judgment. For the first time in years, Arjun understood that a successful career could collapse much faster than it had been built. That evening, Arjun drove to his father's old house on the outskirts of the city. His father, Devendra Mehta, had retired from teaching several years earlier and spent his days reading, gardening, and helping children from the neighborhood with their studies. Arjun entered quietly and sat beside him without saying much. His father noticed his troubled expression but did not immediately ask questions. After several minutes, Arjun finally told him everything. He expected criticism, but Devendra simply listened. When Arjun finished, his father said urgently, he wanted success so badly that he forgot to ask what kind of person he wanted to become while achieving it. Arjun looked down at the floor. His father continued, a position can give you authority, but only values can give people a reason, trust that authority. Those words stayed with Arjun throughout the night. He began remembering moments from his childhood that he had almost forgotten. He remembered his father returning a wallet he had found on a bus, even though the wallet contained more money than the family had at that time. He remembered his mother quietly sharing food with a neighbor during a difficult month. He remembered a school teacher who once told him that intelligence without character would become dangerous. At the time, Arjun had thought such lessons were old-fashioned. Now they seemed more important than every management book he had ever read. He realized that his parents had never taught him that money or achievement was wrong. They had simply taught him that success would never require him to sacrifice honesty, compassion, responsibility, or respect. The next morning, Arjun returned to the company and requested a meeting with the board. He did not prepare excuses or blame his team. He openly accepted responsibility for his decisions and explained exactly what had happened. He also recommended that the company introduce a stronger system for reporting technical skills, where junior employees could directly escalate serious concerns without fear of being ignored. The board appreciated his honesty, although they did not immediately restore his position. Arjun understood that accepting consequences was part of taking responsibility. He apologized personally to Rohan and told him that he had been wrong. Rohan was surprised because he had never expected an apology from someone as senior as Arjun. I don't know what will happen to my career, Arjun said, but I don't want to protect my career by damaging someone else. The months that followed were difficult. Arjun lost the promotion, his reputation suffered, and several people who had once surrounded him disappeared from his life. Here something unexpected happened. Without the constant pressures to impress everyone, he began noticing people again. He started listening when colleagues spoke instead of planning his responses. He began mentoring younger employees and encouraged them to question decisions when they believed something was wrong. He stopped taking credit for every success, started recognizing the contributions of others. Slowly trust returned. It did not happen quickly, and it did not happen because Arjun demanded it. It happened because people saw consistent changes in his behavior. He learned that character was not built through one dramatic decision. It was built through hundreds of small choices made when nobody was watching. One afternoon, Rohan approached Arjun with an unexpected proposal. The company was beginning a new project focused on creating paper digital systems for small businesses, and Rohan believed Arjun would be the right person to lead it. Arjun was surprised. After everything that happened, why would you recommend me? He asked. Rohan smiled and replied, because you made a serious mistake, accepted responsibility, and changed. Most people want to look perfect. You learned that being trustworthy is more important than appearing perfect. Arjun realized that this was a different kind of success. Nobody was offering him the positions because he had repeated to someone else. He was being trusted because he had learned to value people and principles above personal advantage. Years later, Arjun became one of the company's most respected leaders. He eventually received promotion, earned a comfortable income, and achieved many of the professional goals he had once dreamed about. But his definition of success had completely changed. He no longer measured his worth by his salary, title, car, or office. He measured it by the number of people who could depend on his reward. The courage he showed when honesty was difficult, and the way he treated those who could offer him nothing in return. He understood that achievements were valuable, but they were temporary positions. Values were different. They became part of a person's identity and continued influencing others long after the achievement itself had been forgotten. At the company's annual gathering, Arjun was asked to speak to a group of young employees about career growth. He looked across the hall and remembered the ambitious young man he had once been. Work hard, he told them, dream big, learn constantly, and never be afraid of success. But while you are climbing, pay attention to who you are becoming. He explained that success without honesty could create fear, success without kindness could create loneliness, and success without responsibility could eventually destroy the very dream a person had worked so hard to build. He told them that values might not always produce the fastest results, but they created something far more durable. Trust. Your achievements may appear on your resume, he said, but your values will appear in the lives of the people you touch. After this speech, a young employee approached him and asked, Sir, if we have to choose between doing the right thing and achieving an important goal, won't choosing values sometimes make us lose opportunities? Arjun smiled because he had once asked himself the same question. Because he answered honestly. Sometimes doing the right thing will cost you an opportunity. You may lose money, recognition, a promotion, or even a relationship. But if an opportunity requires you to become someone you cannot escape, losing it may actually be a form of winning. The young employee remained silent for a moment, observing the words. Arjun looked around the hall and felt a quiet satisfaction that no promotions had ever given him. He was no longer trying to prove that he was successful. He was simply trying to live a life he could respect. That night, Arjun returned home and found an old photograph of his parents standing outside their modest house many years earlier. There are no luxury cars, expensive clothes, or impressive achievements visible in the picture. Yet their faces carried a peaceful happiness that suddenly filled priceless. Arjun placed the photograph on his desk and smiled. He finally understood what his father had tried to teach him long ago. Success can make life comfortable, but values make life meaningful. Money can buy a beautiful house, but not trust. A position can command obedience, but not genuine respect. Recognition can attract attention, but only character can inspire lasting admiration. The greatest achievement is not reaching the highest place in the world. It is reaching that place without losing that goodness within yourself. From that day onward, Odin continued to pursue excellence, but he pursued it differently. He wanted to succeed, but not at any cost. He wanted wealth, but not at the price of integrity. He wanted recognition, but not by diminishing others. He wanted leadership, but he understood that leadership meant serving people rather than controlling them. Whenever he faced a difficult decision, he asked himself three simple questions. Is it honest? Is it fair? Can I live peacefully with this decision years from now? Those questions did not always make his choices easy, but they made his direction clear. And gradually he discovered that when success grows from strong values, achievement becomes more than a personal victory. It becomes a source of strength for everyone around you. The story of Arjun reminds us that life will constantly tempt us to measure ourselves by visible achievements. We may compare salaries, houses, careers, positions, social status, awards, and accomplishments, believing that the person with the most has somehow won the race. But life is not merely a race toward external success. It is also a journey of becoming. We cannot control every outcome, and we may not always receive the recognition we deserve, but we can control the values with which we face every situation. Honesty, kindness, courage, humility, compassion, responsibility, and respect may not always make us fastest climber, but they ensure that the person who reaches the top is still someone worth becoming. Ultimately, success is not wrong, ambition is not wrong, and the desire to achieve something meaningful is not wrong. The real danger begins when achievement becomes more important than character. A person can rebuild a career after failure, recover money after a loss, and find new opportunities after rejection. But losing one's integrity can leave a much deeper wound. Therefore, pursue your dreams with determination, but carry your values with you. Let your achievements make you proud, but let your character make you peaceful. The world may remember what you accomplished, but the people whose lives you touched will remember how you made them feel. And in the end, that may be the most beautiful definitions of success. To achieve something worthwhile while remaining a person you can genuinely respect. Disclaimer: this is a fictional story created for inspirational and educational purposes. The characters, events, and situations are imaginary and are not intended to represent any specific persons or real life incident. Thank you very much for your patience. Request to like, subscribe, and share.